Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. You've heard our dueling 7-round Giants mock drafts where Nick and I did it separately, though somehow we picked the first three players the same. I think that's just how it works out in the PFF mock draft simulator. Today, we're doing something we've done in past as well. It's a dual mock draft, or me and Nick are playing GM and we're both in the front office and we both have to come to a decision live as we play out the draft simulator instead of doing it ahead of time together. And we have to make the pick for the Giants that way. We have to debate the players and come to a conclusion on what we want at which pick. So we're going to use a different mock simulator today. We're going to use the PFN mock draft simulator just to change it up a little bit from PFF and so we don't end up drafting the same team, hopefully. But Nick, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing well, Dan. I'm doing well. Got the Knicks playoffs. It's a lot going on. It's a lot of fun. Got the NFL draft this week, bro. I'm so stoked. I'm so hyped for the NFL draft. See what the New York Giants are going to do. Hopefully they can put a competitive team together, but I am doing well. Thank you, buddy.
Me too, man. I'm excited to get into this one last mock draft. We've had some episodes come out over the weekend. I'm sure you guys have caught up on. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please leave a comment. Please help us juice this page up. I'm all about that juice. Juice this page up for Thursday night. That's the idea for getting all this content out. We're going to do a My Guys episode coming out as well soon. Listening back to last year's My Guys, we had some big hits there. And maybe like a final thoughts pod if we have time for all of those things. So without further ado, let's get into this mock draft, Nick.
Let's do it. So Dan and I, again, collaborative general managers. We are in the war room discussing how we want to rebuild the New York Giants. This is what Dan and I would do, not what Joe Shane will do. So we are going to use PFN's mock draft simulator, normal 7 New York Giants. Let's go, Dan. So let's see exactly what happens here.
I wish
Cameron
we could
Ward. Ooh,
okay.
See, this is where it got really interesting. Abdul Carter went second.
Yep. And it's still possible. Remember, early in the process, there was basically a foregone conclusion the Browns were going to take Carter. They really liked him. They met with him a bunch of times. I don't think it's impossible that they'll take Carter. I think it's been speculated on, Nick, at this far into the draft process that Hunter is probably the likely pick, but I don't think it's impossible. So I'm intrigued by this scenario. I think it's still a possible play. I'm just happy this mock draft simulator, Nick, didn't have Cam Ward on the board because that's just stupid.
No, absolutely not. And there are other draft simulators that kept giving us that situation. And it's just silly. And Cam Ward is going number 1 overall. So we have 2 trade offers, Dan. The Bears picked up the phone, called Joe Shane, offered 10, 39, and 41 for 3 and 65. First off, you want us to give up the 65? Like, that's insane. Of course not. This is going to be a reject. Offer. It's going to be a reject. Let's see the next one. The Jets picked up the phone. Maybe they want Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they want Travis Hunter. Like, we'll give you 7 and 42. You give us 3. I'm going to reject.
Worst offer.
Yes, I'm going to reject that as well. Dan, I think this is relatively simple here at 3. I say we take Travis Hunter, cornerback, wide receiver, and now we play the draft out this way, which is a lot different from what we did, both of us, what we did in our dueling mock draft situation.
Yeah, I'm in on it.
Let's do it. Travis Hunter, you're a New York Giant. Shout out.
Not much to say there either. Nick and I have discussed Hunter at length on a variety of episodes, most of which you've heard. If you are new to the podcast, you can find a Travis Hunter full draft profile if you just type into our YouTube page, Google, Big Blue Banter, Travis Hunter draft profile. It'll probably pop up there, and we've discussed him at length in other episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just going to cruise along since we have this at normal speed as we discuss. There's some guys falling right now. One of them just went off the board. Derek Harmon went to the Baltimore Ravens. And we're at the top of the 2nd round. And we have guys like Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss around, Omarion Hampton, the North Carolina running back, defensive lineman Talik Williams from Ohio State. Both Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart are around. But we have this one trade offer from the Denver Broncos to get a 2026 3rd and 7th, as well as the 51st and the 85th pick for pick 34.
No shot.
No shot. I'm right there with you.
They're all terrible offers. I mean, the second one wasn't that bad, but these aren't good offers. Let's take a look at what's on the board. I mean, I got an idea of what I want here already just because there's a player that I'm really excited about getting on the top of this board, I think. But let's see. So Omarion Hampton's on the board. That's interesting. I don't think we want to go that direction. What's that quarterback?
Let's go through it that way. Quarterback, we have Dart, Milroe, Shuck, and then Will Howard. So Sanders is off the board, and obviously Cam Ward is off the board. So we're not going to, I'm personally fine with not going running back quarterback at this moment and just at least entertaining, looking at everything else. When we look at running backs, Omarion Hampton and Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson and Keyshawn Junkins all still around. Not entertaining that at the moment. Wide receiver, Trey Harris and Jalen Noel are the two top ones, as well as Jaden Higgins, Jalen Royals, a Utah State kid. Offensive tackle, we have Josh Connerly
Quick
Jr.
tight end real quick. Is Colston Loveland on the board?
He is not. Colston
Okay.
Loveland is not on the board, but Mason Taylor is on the board, as well as Harold Fannin and Terrence Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo. Josh Connerly Jr.,
Ooh.
Donovan Jackson, and I'm going to switch over to defense a little bit. Walter Nolan.
Go back to OT for a second. Besides Josh Conley, I want to see what's on the board there.
It's Marcus Membo, Emery Jones.
Oh, the big kid from Minnesota.
Yeah, and then the big kid from Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, we can entertain Josh Connerly. I will have that conversation. I'm just trying to go through who else we should entertain here. Walter Nolan, Tyleek Williams, Kenneth Grant is available.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow. Let's look at the edge. JT Tuimawalu, if I said that correctly.
Landon Jackson.
Landon Jackson, Oladejo from UCLA, Carson Schlesinger. Yeah, Carson Schlesinger is around. And then I'm not going to go cornerback because we just added a cornerback, and safety, Kevin Winston Jr. and Xavier Watts, as well as our guy, Makubu, are all around. So for me, man, this is easy with Kenneth Grant falling this far. That's the pick that I would like to go for. But I know you're a big Josh Connerly Jr. guy, and I could certainly be swayed off that because of the depth in this class. But the thought of Kenneth Grant next to Dexter Lawrence, it just solidifies this run defense. And it also sets us up for the latter half of this draft where we already addressed the defensive line position with somebody who I think is a top 15 player in this draft class.
It's a big conversation to have. I want to actually start at the top with the quarterback, a position that it doesn't seem like you or I are really entertaining at this point. And it's not really in our plans to even consider over some of the players on the board here at 34, despite us having the opportunity, Nick, to draft any quarterback we want besides Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And this gets to the point of contention among, Giants fans. And I understand those who want us to take a swing at quarterback. I just think quarterback is not the position people believe it is in general. You can't just take a swing. You have to have a belief that this player can be a difference maker. And I think there is upside with both Dart and Milroe, but I don't see enough upside, and I don't see enough of a case where it does work out. I look at this class the same way I did at the start, even more so in that direction, because I've actually spent the time to study this class. These are a lot of big gambles, a lot of big question marks, like not good gambles. I'm talking about gut shot straight draws, maybe an open-ended straight draw if you're lucky, if you're using poker terms. Like, we're not betting on multi-draws. We're not betting on a open-ended straight draw and a flush draw at the same time, right? We're not at 44% with some of these players. Yeah, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. Milroe has excellent traits, but he's so far behind from a tape standpoint where you want him to be. And there's also question marks about his hand size and his fumbling and like if he'll ever be able to operate quick game and why are his eyes ever going to go to the right place. Same with Jackson Dart. Are his eyes ever going to go to the right place? These are not questions I want to be asking about a player at 34 overall. I get it. We need a quarterback. I understand that more than anyone. I've been making that case for years here and I'm desperate for it. And I even believe it's worth everything in the NFL. Doesn't mean I can force it. And it doesn't mean I can make it happen when it's not there. Will these guys work out? Will somebody work out in this class? Maybe, Nick, but I don't know how I'm going to predict that or if I'm going to predict that. And I also think there's a better chance than not that only one, maybe two quarterbacks work out in this class as top 10 guys that you want to build your franchise around. And I don't want to waste that at 34 if there are difference makers on the board. And I see three potential difference makers on the board here, Nick. More than three, but three that stand out. Two that you mentioned, Josh Connerly and Kenneth Grant. But the third that I may even lean toward, and we're going to have this discussion now, is Walter Nolan. I just don't know if Walter Nolan isn't the highest upside of those three players. I understand. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think there's a sound argument to be formulated that Walter Nolan has the highest upside of those three players. And I don't think this is even really a ceiling versus floor argument per se. I can understand why one would conclude that, but Kenneth Grant has a high upside too. He's not just a floor pick, and he's 100%. More consistent of a player than a Walter Nolan. And I can't really I don't know anything about Walter Nolan, the person, but you hear things from people who are more linked to the situation that he might be a little bit more of a difficult personality to handle. Whereas you don't hear anything like that about Kenneth Grant. And I want that beef, man. I want that beef. Give me those burgers, bro. Give me that beef next to Dexter Lawrence and Kenneth Grant. Walter Nolan, what is he, like 295?
Totally different kind of player. You're
Totally
betting on,
different kind of
yeah.
player. And I think we can, and honestly, me personally, I would rather take Grant, and I think we can get, if we trade back maybe, or even if we don't, there's going to be other value later in the draft that is more aligned with the Walter Nolan skill set, that quick upfield burst. The Giants have that on the roster right now, but I think it could be, as I did in our Dueling Mocks episode, that could be upgraded over with Elijah Chapman. But I'd rather go with, I don't want to say safe, because safe has negative connotations, but to me, a much better overall player and a safer overall player for what it's worth in Kenneth Grant, the kid from Michigan.
And I think for the reasons you said, I may have a higher grade overall on Grant versus Nolan, but I will make the devil's advocate case as we discuss this pick and we're on the board and we have a little bit of time. I actually almost think it's the opposite. I think I agree with you that there are those gap shooters later in the draft, but as I look throughout NFL history, I feel like you're either going to hit with those types of players or they just don't play at all and they're just not worth putting on the field for any snaps. Like they're not quick enough, they're not fast enough, they're not agile enough to win against NFL level, and then they're just offer you nothing versus those like Alfred Collins types. I believe you can get those guys a little bit later in the draft and they could serve a role most of the time. Now, not always. There's obviously still like Jordan Riley and DJ Davidson. If you go that late into a class, you may not hit there either. They may not even be giving you anything versus the run as well. But I do kind of feel like some of those gap shooters that you get later in the draft, those types of D tackles, they just are like, don't work out at all for the most part. Walter Nolan, I think, could actually really change this defense if he hits his high ceiling. Now, I don't know the off-field stuff either, but the flashes of what I've seen from him are like, well, this guy's a top 10, top 15 overall prospect on his best flashes. Grant has that as well, but I don't think he has it as much as Walter Nolan from a pass rushing standpoint or anywhere close. With that said, that's not the only reason you draft someone. You don't draft someone just for their flashes. But I just think about Nick, like if he did hit and if the Giants were able to rein him in with Andre Patterson, now we're talking about like a really, in my mind, if he hits the best pass rush by far in the NFL. If you go, and it's a little bit different because we didn't get Abdul Carter at 3, but that's part of the reason why I'm a little bit more interested in a player like Walter Nolan to give us some more of that pass rushing juice on the interior. Him and Dex next to each other, it's just really exciting to think about.
Yeah, no. Hey, I think you bring up a lot of sound points here. Walter Nolan complements Dexter Lawrence's skill set very well. I think Dexter Lawrence can also be he can do really whatever you need him to do. But in Shane Bowen's system, where there's probably going to be a lot of sending for, a lot of slanting, and a lot of twisting, Walter Nolan tends to fit that archetype much better than a player like Kenneth Grant. With that said, I still would rather go with Kenneth Grant to really beef up the run defense. I'm not saying Walter Nolan is a bad run defender, but I know Kenneth Grant is an excellent run defender. And to me, ever since the Giants traded Leonard Williams, this defensive line and the ability to fit the run, and even when Leonard was there, and Leonard is an exceptional run defender, this run defense has suffered. I want Shane Bowen to be able to run his system with the 2 high. We talk about a lot with the palms, lighter boxes. If you're going to do that, you need strong trench play. You need depth on the defensive line, and you need tough SOBs to pair next to Dexter Lawrence. We can't have this shit anymore, Dan, where it's like, oh, Dexter Lawrence needs a break. Every offense is going to run the football at the Giants. We just can't do that anymore. And that was the story of the 2024 season until Dexter Lawrence got injured and Shane Bowen had to drastically change what he wanted to do defensively in order to not give up 250 rushing yards to Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. And I think to go like further with your point, while he will give us all that, Grant, and we've seen it on tape when we watch these Michigan games, there is also the untapped potential for a guy who's that size and that weight who moves the way he moves as a pass rusher. Like right now, it looks like Walter Nolan is going to be the better pass rusher of the two, but that's not a guarantee. Like what Dexter Lawrence has been able to uncover as a pass rusher, it was not at the time he was drafted, that was not foreseen. And that's why, you saw his teammate go ahead of him, Wilkins, in that draft class, even though at this point, no one in the NFL, no GM would ever take Christian Wilkins over Dexter Lawrence. And it's not even close. And by the numbers, Dexter Lawrence is not only a much better run defender than Wilkins, he's actually a better pass rusher by the numbers, by every single metric you can look at. So he's become just the overall better player. And I think that's in Grant's profile as well. I see a lot of upside. I see the higher floor. So for me, yes, I will move Grant ahead. The question now becomes for me, Grant or Connerly. And that's the more interesting one. Now, I think this question gets even more interesting if Josh Simmons is on the board, and it doesn't look like he is, because now you're talking about really, really big upside at tackle. I think Connerly may be a little bit less on the upside profile than Josh Simmons. Obviously, Simmons has the ACL, holding him back potentially, making him fall in the draft, not in this mock. With Connerly, man, I just think like I maybe it's swayed by like, you only have time in the draft process, Nick, to watch what you can watch. But watching him against Abdul Carter was really, really eye-opening and was really fun. And the way that his feet move, it's not him, because I loved Rashawn Slater's tape a lot more than his, but it's that same idea of like, now you have the quick feet at tackle that you've been looking for. And that seems to work across the board in the NFL. When you look at all these offensive tackle hits, what is it? They have the great short shuttle time. That Josh Norris has done a lot of great work on showing this. And they have the quick feet. They have the footwork to work, and they don't bend at the waist. I think Connerly checks all those boxes. Maybe size is an issue. And the question becomes, Nick, well, what's the plan, right? Because Andrew Thomas is at left tackle. Is Connerly going to be able to play right tackle? These are questions the Giants will have to answer, like Carmen Brasillo will have to answer. And it's not a pick for this year, too, by the way. This is a pick for the future. So that's something that Joe Shane will have to answer if he wants to go that route. And that's our question now. I think I lean Grant of those two. I just think Grant is a better prospect overall, and he fits the need more.
I lean Grant as well. He's top 15 player in this draft class for me. That's the direction I think we should go. Do we want to solidify that and talk a little bit more about Josh Connerly as the draft unfolds?
We could. I will say one thing on this before we solidify that. We will solidify that because I think that's where we're leaning strongly. We have a much better chance of getting a interior defensive lineman later in our class than we do of offensive tackle. This is our last chance, in my opinion, to get a future offensive tackle for this team. The problem for me is I don't necessarily think Connerly fits exactly what I want with Thomas on the roster. That's basically where I'm at with it right now and why I would lean Grant.
I agree. And Josh Connerly, look, to me, he looks small out there.
He does.
But it's very rare to see offensive linemen move like this. It's just insane range, it's insane explosiveness and short area quickness and ability to stay balanced, controlled, low, uses his hands well. He eliminated Abdul Carter's high side rush multiple times. The one play where Carter tried to bend around the edge, he landed his outside hand and then just put his weight on Abdul Carter's inside shoulder, and Carter just collapsed to the ground. And there was another play later in the game where Carter tried bending around the edge, and you just see Josh Connerly Jr.'s feet just up. It just looks so fluid. I love seeing offensive linemen's feet, Rex Ryan. I love seeing offensive linemen's feet that just are they mirror so effortlessly. It just looks so different, right? There was a player, Jedrick Wills was similar. I know it hasn't worked out in the NFL, but he had similar footwork when he was at Alabama. Josh Connerly Jr. has that type of high-end elite feet. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make it, but I tend to lean in the same direction as you when it comes to a player like this. I think he's only played left tackle all throughout his career at Oregon. Giants have Andrew Thomas on this roster right now. He's locked up long-term. I know he's had injury issues, but I want to lean defensive lineman here.
Yeah, I think for now we go Kenneth Grant. We're happy he's on the board. We're happy with our first two picks.
Very happy with the first two picks. We are going to go Kenneth Grant. We're going to let this draft unfold. Landon Jackson, Jalen Noel, Donovan Jackson, Omarion Hampton.
Another player I wanted to get your take on while we let this draft unfold, who was up there. Very interesting prospect. Ursary from Minnesota. So question with him, is that how you pronounce his last name?
We're going to go with it.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that name. When I watch him, I'm intrigued by him. He's a mountain of a man, but I do think he is a better athlete than I thought he was going to be. But it's what kind of athlete is he, right? Like, I think he's a better athlete because he's fast for his size and he can get forward in the run game and do things in that regard. But he still does tend to be that like Evan Neal type bend at the waist athlete. So I guess it's the level, what kind of athlete are you going for? The lateral agility, the flexibility, or like the straight line? He's a straight line athlete, and that's awesome. Like the things I think he could do in the run game with his size, length, and speed are interesting to me. And then it's like, can he also be the Orlando Brown Jr. too big to get across? Like what we said with Evan Neal, our hope with Neal was like, well, he's just too big to get beat around the edge. It didn't work out for Neal, right? It didn't work out for some players. It works out for others. I think he's a really interesting prospect. I haven't heard your thoughts on him at all. He was in the mix there for us at 34. He was on the board. So what are your thoughts on him? It looks like he's actually still on the board here at 65.
He is still on the board here at 65, has played mostly left tackle. I believe he only played a little bit of right tackle when he was a freshman, 5th-year senior. He's already 23 years old. He's a big mountain of a man. I have not watched Minnesota's offense too extensively, so I don't have an evaluation to lean on here. I'm going off of what I've seen watching college football. I don't think a lot of people that size move the way he does, but again, it's a little bit of an incomplete evaluation for me to really opine on his skill set.
I would say it's interesting the way I agree. It's a planet theory. He shouldn't move the way he does at that size, but it's also like, it's the movement forward that looks good, but that's not what you need always at tackle. You need to be able to move backwards, and you need to be able to have balance and agility. And like we've said with like players like Tyler Booker, we like his pass pro. You need to be able to bend at the waist.
Yeah, you need to be able to bend at the waist. And with him, I think he has more bend than someone like a Daniel Filele who came out of the same school a couple years ago, right? But Filele is also 6'8" and about like 25, 30 pounds heavier than Ersery, who's still like 6'6", 330, 335, or whatever the hell he is.
Yeah, he's an interesting player. He's on the board here, and I'm intrigued by him. Let's see what else we have.
Let's see some of the devastating picks that went off the board to a couple picks before us in our division. So Jalen Milroe ended up going to the Dallas Cowboys at 60, Carson Schlesinger to Washington at 61, and then Harold Fannin Jr. to the Eagles at 64, the pick before the New York Giants.
It's a little early for Fannin anyway. I like him more in the 99 range, to be honest.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. This, the great year of 2025, is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's TIMELINE. Yes. So here are some of the players who are available at the top of PFN's board. Caleb Johnson.
Well, hold on. Sorry. I shouldn't say that. I would be fine with him at 65, but I think he will last a little longer than this mock. But anyway, go on.
Okay. Caleb Johnson, running back Iowa. Ersery, who we were just talking about, the offensive tackle from Minnesota. Princely Umelin, I can never say that. Edge, Ole Miss. TJ Sanders, the defensive tackle from South Carolina. We got Jaden Higgins is still around, the Iowa State kid. The other Iowa State wide receiver already went off the board. We have some edges too, like Braden Swinson had a great 2024 year out of LSU. Colin Williams, Washington State wide receiver.
Let's go by position real quick. Let's click edge. I want to see if Josiah Stewart is on the board.
He is. Yeah, he is at 87.
That's a player that you and I both believe is worth this pick at 65, correct?
I wouldn't be upset.
I would like it. What'd you say?
I wouldn't be upset.
I guess it's a question of like, do you take a size length outlier like him at 65 overall? Because it's not too dissimilar from the decision to take Wan'Dale Robinson.
It is a little dissimilar.
I think it is too. I'm just saying that the devil's advocate size is it dissimilar enough from the decision to take Wan'Dale? I think he's more physical. Not that Wan'Dale's not physical. Wan'Dale is a physical player.
I'm saying it's dissimilar from a more macro perspective. Look, like measurables for wide receivers, there are teams like the Green Bay Packers who historically have those measurables, those measurable thresholds that they don't really run against, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here with the Giants, like getting Wan'Dale, yes, he's an outlier from a lot of perspectives, but I think being an outlier as a wide receiver in a specific role is different than being an outlier when it comes to length at edge. I think length at edge is a threshold that's a little bit more ubiquitous around the NFL than with wide receiver because there are different roles and there's different ways that they can be used. Whereas at edge, if you do not have the length, some teams are like, you can't stack and shed. You can't
Right.
dictate anything. I think Stewart can because he's
I
just
do
a
too.
really unique player. So I'm not speaking to Stewart. I'm speaking more so to, I don't know if Joe Shane will be as willing to take such an extreme outlier at 65, especially if Josiah Stewart, the Michigan edge, is going to be off a lot of teams' boards and the Giants may be able to get him at value a little bit later.
Possibly. Yeah. I really couldn't imagine this guy falling to 99. Like, given the tape that I've watched and the production, it just seems crazy. I get it. He's an outlier, but like we've seen some of these outliers work. Let's take a look at what else we have available to us. So,
Yeah. So defense, here are all the defensive linemen. I know we just went defensive linemen, but you have TJ Sanders, Darius Alexander, Alfred Collins, Omar Norman Lott, Shamar
Darius
Taylor.
Alexander's on the board. I mean, like that's like the best player available. We can't afford to do it right now.
Yeah, and that's the conflict of going a defensive tackle
Right.
at 34 that we discussed a little bit earlier. But to me, I'm not going to pass on a really great player, somebody I feel like could be a really
In
great
Kenneth
player.
Grant.
Yes, and I didn't love some of the other options. I
I know
could have
you
went with.
haven't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said we could have went with Connerly, but
Yeah.
I'm happy with the pick and how it
I know
materialized.
you haven't done a lot of film work on him. We just discussed him. I know some people are going to be like, holy shit, you're falling down the same trap of the Evan Neal. But like, I am very intrigued by adding Ursary right now at this pick. Look, I get it. There are some issues on his tape. There's also some good stuff that I've seen in these cut ups. And there's also the idea to me of putting someone of that size, of that length, of that straight line speed and athleticism on this offensive line and seeing what the hell can happen, because this offensive line doesn't have a lot of size right now. If you're really looking at it, JMS is undersized, in my opinion, for NFL standards. Runyon is undersized. At right guard, I don't know what they're going to do. There's no long-term solution currently in place. At right tackle, Lunar is currently there. He's not the biggest dude either in the run game. And Andrew Thomas is fine in the run game. I don't think he's at his best in the run game. Like a player like Ursary, the upside I think he could add to the Giants' run game if he hits. To me, at 65, it may be worth it here. He's definitely someone I want to put in consideration. What else do we have on the interior offensive line here available to us?
Yeah, interior offensive line, we have Dylan Fairchild and Miles Frazier, that's Georgia and LSU respectively, are the top two guards. Neither of these players are players that I would consider here at 65. Garrett Dillinger, the LSU.
Yeah, I can't see that. Okay, really, there was a huge run of interior offensive linemen, it seems like, before this, or at least the guys that I'm interested in that pick.
Yeah, Jared Wilson is available, the offensive center from the University of Georgia.
I like him a lot. I don't know if the Giants would go that direction, but it's up to us. We're the GM here.
That's
Garrett
the
Wilson. What'd you say?
That's the thing. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Where are you leaning here?
I also wanted to say Elijah Arroyo is also around. So we consider him, Jack Besh, Kyle, a lot of receivers. Ilik Ayumaner is around, the Stanford wide receiver as well. Which direction do we go, Dan?
So for me, I'm really of the mindset that I don't want to go skill position player here. If I have options at edge or on the offensive line, I want to continue to build this thing out through the trenches. Prioritize skill positions a lot. Look, we had no option in round one. That doesn't mean we're never going to do it. Travis Hunter's the best player by far in this class. Of course, we're going to take him, even though he's a skill position player. But we already did that, and I'd like to do another trench player here. So for me, it comes down to Josiah Stewart, the edge from Michigan, or Ursary here.
What about Tyler Shuck?
I personally am not too interested in Tyler Shuck at 65, but I know you've made the case for him before.
I have.
And this is kind of what will happen in a draft room, right? Like the GM might want the quarterback and the coach might not want the quarterback, or the opposite. And that might be happening with the Giants throughout this entire draft class. If something like this happens, look, Shuck is on the board here at 65. I don't think it's something that I personally want to get involved in.
Hold on one second. I'm going to pick up the phone. We're going to be general manager and we're going to pick up the phone. Okay. So I'm going to call the Bears since, they tried calling us a little bit before. And if I offered them 65 for, 72 and 118 to drop 7 spots, we pick up 118. Is that something we would entertain, Dan?
I don't love that.
No?
Actually, You know what? Let's try it. It's only 7 spots. Let's see if they'll do that.
Yes. They did not do that.
Okay.
I would certainly, because I still think there's a lot of meat at that point of the draft. And I
Right.
keep bringing up meat. I don't know what's wrong with me today, but there's a lot of nourishment even in the early parts of day 3. So like round 4, round
No,
5,
I
this is
agree.
a lot of decent players. So I'm cool with going, since this is you and I'm cool with going Josiah Stewart here. We can make another phone call if we want, try to pick up another draft. We're not in any rush at the moment. And if we do, we could call Jacksonville, who has a boot general manager. Maybe and I know they have a bunch of picks too. So if I offer 65 for 70 and 126, try that.
I think once you get to, is there anything above 126? I don't really, once you get to 126, I feel like you're
There's
teetering.
107, but I doubt that,
See if they'll do 107.
yeah, no, they
No. I
rejected
don't
one.
know if I want to pick up 126 to move down some slots. I don't believe as much as you do in 120, like once you get into the outside the top 100.
I believe in just adding talent, just
I
adding people.
agree. It's just the draft history of those picks is so like pie in the sky. It's going to look great now on paper. I'm fine with it. You want to take 126? I'm sure we can
I
find
mean,
someone we love there.
they rejected it anyways.
Yeah.
So this whole exercise might not be working for us with trading. People do not like Joe Shane.
No, they've had enough of Joe Shane's
They
trade
yeah,
offers.
yes, absolutely. 70. Oh damn, they got a bunch of picks right here. 71 and 112.
No shot.
Yeah, no,
We can get this trade.
let's just sit here and take our guy. We'll
The
go with
question,
Josiah.
okay, so Josiah, so here's what it comes down to, and this is the case that's to be sold. This is our last premium pick, I think, 65. 99 and 105, we're going to like the players we get, but it's not a premium pick. This is our last chance, in my mind at least, to really add an offensive lineman in this class. That doesn't mean we can't take one at 99 and 105, Nick, but I'm not going to really have a good belief in anybody we get at 99 or 105 on the offensive line, specifically offensive tackle. So I'm not saying we take Ursary here, but I'm saying if we want to leave this draft class with any kind of long-term upside and hope at offensive line, I really believe it has to be done here. That doesn't mean that's what's going to play out in the NFL draft or that you can't get a guy at 99 and 105, but you're looking into a range that historically is not done well in the draft from Draft Center, specifically if we're looking at offensive tackle. So it just comes down to that. But I do believe both you and I have a higher grade or just a higher expectation for Josiah Stewart. He's a my guy for both of us. So I'm fine just getting the my guy.
As am I. I wish I saw more of Ursary's tape.
Yeah.
But I am intrigued at taking one of the top tackles in this draft class. I know he's a left tackle. It really comes down to, hey, can Carmen Brasillo kick this guy inside or, over to the right side?
Or right side, yeah.
There's really no way for us to know that. He did a little bit of that in college, but it was like 5 years ago. So I think I'm also fine with staying put and going with Josiah Stewart, although I know it's early because of those measurables, man. But this is what you and I would do. This isn't necessarily a threshold thing.
We could try to get Ursary here and see if Stewart is still on the board.
I think I'm okay with that. If we look at edge, right? If we wanted to add edge, there are some other players a little bit later down the board that I could be talked into. And there's still edges. I don't want to judge it just based off what PFN has, because again, but there are other edges that are solid. Like they would be much less exciting than Josiah Stewart, obviously.
I can't say I'm like sold on Ursary. I've watched him and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought I was going to see something that a lesser athlete than I saw, but there are issues and like it could be enough to be, well, you can't pass protect at the NFL level, which is a risk. But I feel like that's the case with every offensive lineman these days, dude. Like so few are sure things. It's such a tough position to develop at the college level. I'd say behind quarterback, there's nothing worse than the lack of development on offensive line, specifically offensive tackle as they enter the NFL. So it's a risk. I maybe the best thing we can do here is just take our guy and Josiah Stewart and not worry about stupid things like draft, like where he's projected to go.
Yeah.
We think he's clearly a top 65 player.
Yes. I'm going to do it. You cool with it?
All right. Yep. Let's do it.
I also think just adding this to the pass rush now that we missed out on Abdul Carter because we got Travis Hunter. This is a nice consolation prize. Let's go with Josiah Stewart, the edge out of Michigan. Ursary was the next pick.
Yeah, no, he was never going to last. Stewart might have lasted, but
yeah, that's the problem with this exercise is I don't know who's going to last. That's the problem with real life, right? Like who's going to
play it like that? Yeah, you just don't know. It only takes one team to love a player, and then that's it.
Absolutely. Tyler Shuck is off the board. Alfred Collins, Darius Alexander, Kevin Winston Jr. A lot of players we like. Elik Ayumanor off the board. So we're closing in on pick 99.
As we close in on 99, we have an edge we added to the class.
Ooh,
We
we're
have an
getting a trade
interior
too.
defensive lineman we added to the class, and we have a corner/wide receiver that we added to our roster.
Yes, we are beefing up our defense and getting a incredibly talented wide receiver prospect. So the Colts called us. They would like pick 99 for pick 117 and 151. I think I'm going to reject this.
I don't
About
like
you?
that.
Yes, let's reject it. I want to look around first too. I wish they allowed us to look around before that. I think it's kind of silly that they don't.
Yeah.
Running back, Damian Martinez, Bayshaw Tootin, Ollie Gordon the second, all still around. RJ Harvey is also around. There's still so many running backs that I love, especially after talking
Dylan
about running
Sampson.
backs with Jacob Gibbs. Dylan Sampson, yes. A lot of running backs. Wide receivers, Savion Williams, who the Giants had in for a top 30 visit. The TCU wide receiver, who's incredibly raw and is compared to Cordero Patterson, is still around. My guy Pat Bryant out of Illinois is around, but we could wait on that. I wouldn't probably pick him this high.
Well, I want to say one thing about Savion Williams because I've heard
Elijah Arroyo is still around too, bro.
Well, that's a big one for us. We've talked about, and they brought him for a pre-draft visit as well. I'll say one thing about Savion Williams because I finally got a chance to really watch him this past week and a big cut up of him. I actually think he's got more wide receiver skills than people give him credit for. A lot more. Like, I don't really like this Cordero Patterson comp at all. I get it because he's like a similar size and he was just as explosive with the ball in his hands. And they did use him in a lot of Cordell Patterson type ways. But when he was lined up a receiver, like I saw him run double moves on the outside. I saw some really nice releases in the red zone to create separation using his athleticism. Like, I kind of feel like I'm looking at a really good athlete that if he gets with the right wide receiver coach, Nick, and develops in the right way, he can actually become a really good route runner too, based on the athleticism. He's very raw right now in that regard, but that doesn't mean that's who he's going to be. I think Savion Williams, given his, he's quickly becoming a my guy based on his traits and the idea that he is not maxed out as a route runner by any means, but has flashes already of winning as a route runner.
No, not at all. Again, he's a little bit older of a prospect. I think he's going
Yeah.
to turn 24 during the season. But when you're 6'4", 220 pounds, and you can run like this guy, it's
stop on a dime too. That's what stood out the most to me, his ability to stop and start at that size.
And just look at him too. Like, look at his build. You're like, oh shit. Like, that's the kind of guy who gets off the bus when you're playing football and you're like, fuck, I gotta cover that guy. Really?
He's a weapon. And nobody wants to tackle him either. Like, he's in play for me here for sure at 99 as a playmaker at this range of the draft.
Yeah,
that I'm
it's just tough. I mean, like, how many times did this guy have like over 100 yards receiving?
Almost none. 1 in 23 games, I think, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, production profile is really rough.
Yep.
Yeah, Jack Besh
back players before. So you're right. Like Kevin White, remember him? Great testing, great projection from a trade standpoint, but no production.
And it's funny because another player that I think we are entertaining here is tight end out of Miami, Elijah Arroyo. And Elijah Arroyo missed 2 seasons with torn ACL, played last year with Cam Ward, and was elite in what he was doing as a field stretching seam who was creating explosive plays. And I think I brought this up on a previous podcast, but if we're leaning into, hey, we're trying to be more explosive, Elijah Arroyo fits what the Giants want to do, but there is baggage there as well with these torn ACLs. There's nothing we're going to know about that. I don't think Arroyo, I think Arroyo is going to go well before 99, and this is an insane value here. We poured 3 picks into our, 2.5 picks, I guess. It's a little weird with Hunter, into our defense. Do we add another offensive weapon, even though Hunter is going to act in that way as well?
I don't want to draft for position, Nick, but I will say if we take Arroyo here, who I do like from a value standpoint and the upside of him, we are straying far away from what we originally went into this draft wanting to do, which is build out the trenches, because we took a skill player at the 3rd overall pick with our most premium draft selection. And even, Josiah Stewart an edge, but he's not necessarily that big edge setting edge. Like, we don't really want. What'd you say?
Not Kenneth Grant.
We got Kenneth Grant. We got one, but we don't have any offensive linemen yet. And again, it's prioritizing the skill players, which I'm fine with. Like, let's take a look just real quick on the interior offensive line and offensive tackle. It's ugly already, isn't it?
It's not great.
Name some guys because I can't read it from here.
Miles Frazier, LSU, Jackson Slater, Sacramento State, Garrett Dillinger, LSU, Luke Kandra, Cincinnati, Clay Webb, Jacksonville. A lot of small school interior offensive linemen. And then Seth McLaughlin.
Really like any of those guys personally, besides maybe Frazier.
And I haven't studied all their tape like extensively, but from what I have seen from a lot of the interior offensive linemen here, none of them jump out at me. And then
Tackle? Any options there? It's doubtful at this point.
Cameron Williams and Logan Brown are the two that I'm considering. So Cameron
Okay.
Williams is from Texas. He played opposite of Kelvin Banks Jr. Solid player overall. Logan Brown, big player from Kansas. I think I know I did something on him. I think it was a draft evaluation, but I've watched his tape and he's big, he's long, he's physical, has some problems when it comes to I think he got kicked out of a couple games with fighting and like he's kind of like a pugnacious personality from what I have collected about him, but he is one player that has intrigued me. I'm not sure if you have gotten eyes on him yet. Logan Brown from Kansas.
Not much to be
Okay.
quite frank.
But you're Dan.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I said, but you're Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have read a little bit about these players, all of them, and I would say that we're at the point of the draft where, at least in this mock, Nick, we've missed the boat on offensive line, to be completely honest.
I don't see. I am willing to look at someone like Brown though, and at this point we're at the end of the third round. He's big, he's athletic, he has the temperament you want. I think he only started like 15 games, something like that, so he doesn't have a huge base of experience to lean on, but he played a lot of right tackle, and he is insanely long, and he's a controlled athlete. So I could be talked into a player like that, but I'm also thinking, I know we want to get tougher in the trenches, but if you were to present the argument to me before this draft, hey, Elijah Arroyo is around, we're going to take Logan Brown over him, I'd be like,
that's kind of where I'm at.
You know
too.
what I mean? So,
yes.
and I get your overall, like the overall thesis that we want to, like, that we went into this draft with, right? Like what we wanted to achieve, but the way the board fell makes me feel like we have to go with the best player instead of.
And that's the key to the draft, right, Nick? Like you can't just be like, I need to get tight end, I need to get tackle, I need to get this. Like that's not how it works. We came in with a plan. We wanted to build trenches. That didn't work out that way. We had Travis Hunter on the board. He's the best player by far in this class. Generational prospect, Nick and I believe, with insane tape and projection at two positions. Had to take him. Josiah Stewart, not the biggest trench player, but in our opinion, the best player on the board. We wanted to take him there too. And now Arroyo or honestly Savion Williams, but I'm okay with Arroyo. The age factor with Williams is fair there. That's a playmaker when we add to our offense. We've seen what Brian Dable can do with these move tight ends, man. Lawrence Cager, Darren Waller, for the small sample size he was here for, and that, just the way they design the offense, he knows how to get this position specific move tight end role open within his offense. And so now, look, we've added two playmakers, but Hunter and Arroyo on this offense with Neighbors, that's a lot of talent in this offense from a skill position standpoint.
I'm leaning in that direction. Cam Williams from Texas is somebody who is interesting to me, just very undisciplined with his hands, which is one reason why I'm a little tentative here. But his hands are also, I think, the biggest hands that have like ever come through the NFL draft. I could be exaggerating, but they're like 11 and like 1/8 or 11 and like a half inches.
Wow.
That's an insanely sized hand. He's only 21 years old. So I look at someone like Cam
that
Williams.
idea.
Yes. So I look at someone like him and I'm like, should we at least have a conversation about Cam Williams? Talk a little bit about Brown. Like, I love young players with upside. At this point of the draft, too, get him with Carmen Brasillo. See if he can develop, because this is a massive, massive individual who played right tackle, and that's kind of what we're looking for right now. Now, do we have PTSD making this selection on someone a little bit raw at pick 99 with the Matt Parrott instance that's happened in the past? Maybe. But again, I still kind of come back to let's bring in Arroyo and go with the best player that I think would have an insanely valuable role to this offense.
Arroyo looks awesome when you watch him on tape. Like, he looks like a potential difference maker at the NFL level. I don't know if we'll get that typically at 99, so I'm willing to take that gamble here.
Also, it's the whole, hey, they're in 12 personnel, kind of. This is basically getting just a big wide receiver. So are we going to lock in Arroyo here, bud?
Yes.
All right, we're going to lock in Arroyo. Elijah Arroyo, Miami tight end. You are a New York Giant.
All right.
Cam Williams was the next pick, dude. That's crazy.
Getting right up to our next pick.
Yes, right up to our next pick, and get this trade offer. Look, Jacksonville comes in. Hey, we'll give you 107 for, well, you know what? This isn't that bad. Actually, they want pick 219 and 105, and we get 107 and 182. Let's do it.
I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Right? I wonder who they want. They wanted Orandi Gadsden II, the tight end from Syracuse.
And Savion Williams comes off the board.
Yeah, and I would have still entertained Savion, but after going with Arroyo and having
Yeah,
Hunter, I think I am.
too many weapons.
Yes. So let's go to the overall big board. Joshua Farmer is still around, and that is somebody that I
Wow.
am going to entertain with Kenneth Grant as well. I think his flexibility and his ability to be aligned across the defensive line is invaluable, could be used even at edge in certain packages, not like as a stand up. I'm going to drop him into coverage type of player, but he's versatile enough that I would like to entertain and think it wouldn't be a redundant pick from Kenneth Grant because he's a different type of player. So Joshua Farmer, defensive lineman out of Florida State. The safety out of Oklahoma, Billy Bowman, is around. Bashawn Tootin from the running back. I kind of want to look at the running back position specifically. Logan Brown is still around, the Kansas tackle that we were talking about. Damian Martinez is here. And I just look, dude, there's so many running backs. Damian Martinez, Ollie Gordon the second, Dylan Sampson, RJ Harvey, Devin Neal, Kyle Monungai, Corey Kiner. They're all still around. Do we just go with Martinez here? Because I do think if there's one running back who complements what the Giants need so badly, it would be probably Damian Martinez or Ollie Gordon. But I like Martinez a lot better than Ollie Gordon.
I'm of a little bit of a different mindset when it comes to the running back position. Less so looking for like the compliment, more so looking for who do I think has the best chance to break out. And I
Mm-hmm.
do like Damian Martinez a lot. So I'd be perfectly fine with Damian Martinez. I think if it was up to me and this was how the board looked and I was going to go running back, it would actually be RJ Harvey for me. I think
Okay.
Harvey is the best upside despite being 24. Don't really care about that age. The same reason for Tyrone Tracy. He is just absolutely explosive in the open field, RJ Harvey, and just a big play waiting to happen. I almost feel like we maybe need that more. I do think Tyrone Tracy can be a little bit more between the tackles physical type of back than he showed in his rookie season, just based on some of the college stuff. But both of those guys would be great picks, I think, for the Giants. And this might be the last spot to really get a difference-making running back, I think. So that's what's going to be in play for me here. I will say this, though. I'm going to have a really, really difficult time not taking Josh Farmer with this pick. I think Josh Farmer is clearly the best player available on the board here, and it's not even remotely close. If I look across, you are not going to get a player of his size anywhere near 105 or 107, whatever we trade it back to in a normal draft. He also has athletic upside, I believe. It's like he doesn't turn it all on at all times. And I know that's like he's been inconsistent and people are like, why hasn't it all clicked? So what? He's a young player and Andre Patterson can get it to click. You are not going to get a interior defensive line prospect like this anywhere near our next pick. And probably, and this happens sometimes in the draft. Weird things happen and players fall. Like he may be on the board here. And I just think, wow, we add him and Grant to the defensive line rotation. We are cooking with gas now. We have guys to rotate in. We have guys when Dexter Lawrence gets tired. We have depth. We have players to play in different fronts. We can mix up different fronts. Like he could be the pass rusher. Kenneth Grant could come off, or Kenneth Grant could develop. We have now two guys who have tools to develop as a pass rusher. Long, big frame, big size, can move. Like I just don't know how I'm going to be talked off of Josh Farmer here from that standpoint.
Yeah, 82 and 3/4 inch wingspan as pro day, 83 and 3/8 at the combine. But regardless, the guy's like 35-inch arms. It's insane. And we discussed Kenneth Grant and we discussed him with Walter Nolan. And why did we discuss that? Because we want somebody who can be a one gap penetrator, somebody who can slant into gaps and disrupt the continuity of the offensive line. Just be an absolute nuisance. Joshua Farmer will offer that. Right. And he's a lot better than a lot of these other defensive tackles who offer that at a much lesser degree. So if the Giants were to make this selection, you have Dexter Lawrence, and it would be Kenneth Grant starting next to him, and then Farmer would be the third rotational defensive tackle, along with Golston, who will work edge and defensive line. And people are like, well, the Giants added Roy Robertson Harris. The Giants added Ledbetter. It's like, I'm not going to let those 1-year deals or 1 or 2 year deals prevent me from selecting a player who has this type of upside and will be under contract at a cost-effective rate for 4 years. Like, to me, I'm cool with going Joshua Farmer here.
Yeah, if you're cool with it, let's lock it in because I won't be. This to me is like a no-brainer versus the board.
Let's do it.
He shouldn't be on the board here. So now we've selected Travis Hunter, cornerback receiver first. We have Kenneth Grant, interior defensive lineman second. Josiah Stewart. We actually got 2 Michigan guys. Both of my guys from Michigan. The edge third. We got Elijah Arroyo, the weapon move tight end fourth. And now we have Joshua Farmer as well on our roster, interior defensive lineman.
Yes, and the picks are coming off the board. Logan Brown did just get selected. And We're
We're
cruising right
bowling through.
now. I think we're going to get a good running back value, though,
That's my
still.
target here.
Yes. And I'm
What
looking at the
what is
running
black
backs.
that
Damien
running back?
Martinez did just come off the board. I figured he would. Um, and yeah, well, we are a couple picks away. RJ Harvey just went, dude, the Cowboys, man. They got Jalen Milroe. They got RJ Harvey. They're just getting our guys over
It's
here, our
disappointing to
possible
lose
guys.
Harvey.
Here we go, though. We are at pick 154. Here are the running backs. Dylan Sampson, who is a Dan guy, I believe. Devin Neal from Kansas. Dylan Sampson's from Tennessee. Kyle Monungai from Rutgers. Rashard Smith, the converted wide receiver, who is a running back from SMU. Corey Kiner, the running back from Cincinnati. Jordan James, Oregon. Jarquez Hunter, Auburn. Taj Brooks, Texas Tech. Those are some of the top running backs who are still available. If we look overall at who is available, the best player available, according to the PFN board, is Dylan Sampson, the running back out of Tennessee. And looking at some of these other names, they got like Riley Leonard, the Notre Dame quarterback who is up here. Seth McLaughlin, the offensive center from, I don't know why I keep saying offensive, the center from Ohio State. Antoine Powell, Ryland, the edge from Virginia Tech. I want to look at the wide receivers real quick as well. Jalen Lane, is the wide receiver from Virginia Tech. Nick Nash, the wide receiver from San Jose State. Isaiah Bonds, his fall continues.
Wow.
The Texas wide receiver. I don't know if we want to bring him in with the baggage that he possesses, but it does seem like the wide receiver position, it's a lot of the guys who are exciting are off the board. You have like guys like Arian Smith, from the wide receiver from Georgia, Theo Weiss Jr., wide receiver from Missouri, Corey Brooks from Louisville. I remember I talked to you about Ja'Cory Brooks when he was at Alabama because I loved him. Every time I saw him out there, he was blocking his ass off, and I love that. Obviously, he makes the transfer to Louisville, and he is the main wide receiver for Tyler Shuck, and he has some solid tape. But he also just like left so many plays on the field that like pissed me off. Where I was like, if you could just make that catch, like I would be so much more enticed about your overall skill set. Because Shuck did everything in his power, getting hit through contact, delivering this football with pinpoint accuracy, and you had to make a little bit of an adjustment, and it hit your hands and you drop it. And it's just like those little things kind of piss me off about Ja'Cory Brooks.
Yeah. I haven't watched him too much extensively outside of just watching Shuck. Like I haven't seen any cut-ups of him, but watching enough Shuck, you see him. I think you're right. He has some flashes, but not somebody I would consider here really. I think the value by far is at running back. So it comes down to what you want at running back. To me, my guys that I'm debating between, and we can discuss who you're debating between after that, are Dylan Sampson, who I don't think should be on the board, and I agree is the best player on the board from an upside and projection standpoint. Kyle Monungai, or the guy that I think I'm probably leaning towards, which is Jarquez Hunter, the running back out of Auburn. I think Hunter has the best size speed profile. I think he has yards after contact. I like the pad level he runs with. I like his whole entire profile, really. He's got size, speed, and production. Yards after contact, forced missed tackles. I don't really understand why he's not projected or rated higher. I guess it's it's just playing on that Auburn offense for too long. But if we're looking for a compliment to Tracy and somebody who shouldn't have fallen in the draft, I think it's him or Sampson for me. I do like Monungai a lot, though, too. Just don't know if I see the exact level. You know what? I like Monungai a lot, too. I could really be talked into any of these three running backs. Sampson's the different one, I think, of those two. He's got a little bit more burst and agility.
For me, look, you're not going to find many people who are bigger Kyle Monungai fans than Nick Filato.
And I get it.
I think Dylan Sampson is the better player, though. I think Dylan Sampson is the best running back who is available right now.
Younger, too.
He's the number one guy on the board. Like, that's whatever for me. But I think he might be like the best player I've seen available. I did not envision him being here in round 5.
No.
So it does make me, and again, he's coming from Heupel's offense. And look, man, I get weird when it comes to Heupel's offense. We've been burnt by this before.
Yeah.
But there are players who have come out of there who are solid. Maybe they're not wide receivers, but I look overall here, Dan, and I think I want to go Monungai, but I think Dylan Sampson should be the pick.
Okay, let's do Dylan Sampson. I like the upside more anyway.
All right, we're going to go Dylan Sampson here at 154. All right. Monungai ends up coming off the board 2 picks later to the Bears. Oh.
We have not yet drafted an offensive lineman. This might be how this thing plays out. I think looking back on our last drafts that we did, our dueling mock round, 7-round mock, Nick, we found a way to get an offensive lineman. Tyler Booker fell, and that's a controversial pick, by the way. Not a lot of people are out on Booker. which I understand some people think you better be playing a predominantly man gap scheme if you're going to draft Tyler Booker. I just liked him more. And I'll say this, if Booker fails, Nick, it's my opinion because we put too much weight, and not just we, like anyone put too much weight on what they saw and what they watched on film, because the film isn't always everything, because you have to, like I've said in the past and I've said again, you have to project how these guys are going to play against the NFL level and the speed of the NFL game, which is impossible to do pretty much, which is why the draft is such a crapshoot. And with Booker, it could just be a situation where he's not fast enough or quick enough to play at the NFL level. We'll find out. I don't think that'll be the case, though.
I don't think that would be the case either, but I've been proven wrong before in the past. So let's look at some linebackers. Cody Lindenberg, Minnesota. Jay Higgins, Iowa. Jeffrey Bassa, Oregon. Colin Oliver and Nick Martin, both from Oklahoma State, are all still available. Solid players. Cornerbacks, look, I mean, we already addressed that, but Mello Dotson from Kansas and BJ Adams from UCF
Frazier,
are available. Zav Frazier, UTSA, that is a Dan Schneier favorite, as well as Hunter Wohler from Wisconsin, who is available as well.
Is Makuba on the board?
Nah, dude, he went off the board in like the second round.
Okay.
Yeah.
They
know. Yeah, he's a good player. He's gonna go. I am going to make a pitch for somebody who I have not fully watched all of his tape, but I texted you about him a couple of days ago. Giants brought him in for a top 30 visit, and it is Kyle McCord, the quarterback from Syracuse. We have heard Joe Shane make a point to mention the value and the importance of saving money on the second, third quarterback down the depth chart, because the Giants got priced out of Tyrod Taylor. The Giants added Drew Lock. That did not necessarily work out. But I was going through McCord's tape, and I haven't watched that Miami game yet. But the tape that I have seen from Kyle McCord, he's not exciting, but he's pretty damn precise. I love the ball placement outside the numbers and over the middle of the field. The timing, the toughness in the pocket. Doesn't have the biggest arm, not the best arm talent in the world, but precise, good accuracy, can put touch on the football, understands where the football has to be and when to get it to him. He's not necessarily the most creative player, right? Like breaks the pocket. He's not going to do these things that are going to drop your jaw, which a lot of these younger quarterbacks who are thriving in the NFL can do. But if you need a guy who can just run an offense and be exceptionally dialed in pre to post snap from a mental processing standpoint, that's what Kyle McCord did at Syracuse. I didn't love his Ohio State tape going back to 2023, but I also don't know if it was nearly as poor as I remembered. I think I can't remember which game it was, but I watched one game where it was like Marvin Harrison Jr. was like just like so upset, so pissed off, right?
And rightfully so.
And rightfully so, because the accuracy was pretty rough. But I didn't see that at all from the tape I have seen from Syracuse. So what are your impressions of Kyle McCord? We should probably have this conversation because I don't think we've talked a lot about him.
No, we haven't. We actually didn't talk about him on the top 30. I think we just missed him when we were doing that offensive episode. With Kyle McCord, it's a really interesting eval for me and a tougher one, I'll say, because I think everything you said is correct. And one thing you brought up, which is really interesting when you watch a Syracuse tape, is the outside the numbers accuracy and ball placement is really good. Now, here are my concerns with Kyle McCord. I agree. He's doing a great job pre to post snap to find solutions, but he's doing that in a Syracuse offense that really spreads it out and is insanely passive. I think he led the NCAA in pass completions, pass attempts, 20 plus completions because of all the volume. But are those solutions going to be found at the NFL level? Because the offense is going to be completely different. You can't run that system in the NFL. No one does. And the defenses are going to be completely different. You're not playing ACC defenses, and you're not playing defenses that are trying to match up against this type of offensive system. And I felt like a lot of the time, Nick, that solution that he found was just the slot solution, which is great. But also there's a lot of space to work with when you spread out a defense, and you can just confirm pre to post snap, based on the coverage where that space is going to be.
I don't know if it was as spread as you're making it, dude. A lot of under center snaps.
No, it's not like an old skill spread. It doesn't mean he's always in the gun or anything like that. I just feel like it was spread's probably not the right word. Let me try to think of what word I will use to describe this offense. Like a fastest show on turf type of thing, because Martz wasn't always in the spread either. He was under center a lot with Kurt Warner and with Mark Bulger back in the day, but it was just that pass first, find the one-on-one type solution offense. I thought, at least watching him, and I thought he did a good job of it, like figuring out that solution. I just don't know how translatable the solutions he found at the college level are, solutions he's going to have at the NFL level when the defense looks different. I also have an issue with the fact that he looked a lot better throwing in the dome at Syracuse and in some of those games in warm weather in the ACC than he did at all against Ohio State in the wind, Michigan, and all those games outdoors. Like, it just looked like a completely different quarterback. And for quarterback who I have questions about his arm talent to begin with, that's always something that scares me coming over to MetLife Stadium. So I don't know if I believe the solutions he found pre-snap to post-snap will be there at the NFL level. I don't believe in the arm, really. And then off-platform stuff, that to me is worse than Shador. That to me is worse than Shuck as far as, can you get out of these sacks? Can you escape these pockets? So
it's
like,
definitely worse than Chuck and Shador.
Yeah, it's definitely, and those aren't really guys that I really think. I think I have question marks about those two guys' ability to get out of tough situations in the pocket. So those are three big question marks for me personally. And the first one I can maybe defer to and say, look, I don't know the offense well enough. Maybe those are solutions he can find at the NFL level. Maybe this offense has a little bit of translatability to the NFL level. Personally, I'd argue that almost no college offense translate at all to the NFL level. So it's all just a guesswork there. But the last two, I just don't know if I can get over. Now, that is all to say, this is pick 155, right? Like, we can maybe just get a long-term QB2, like you said, and Joe Shane argued for. That's worth it because now we're saving money. But I'll say this, Nick, we got Jameis Winston for 2 years, $8 million. And I watched on tape Jameis Winston throw with anticipation, throw to all levels of the field, and push the football. So I don't know if saving that $3 million is that important to me, or the $2.5 million a year. I feel like these days you can get talent at QB2, Tyrod Taylor, Jameis Winston, at reasonable prices. So it just doesn't appeal to me the same way, and if I don't see the upside case, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't want to make a case for upside when we're talking about the quarterbacks that you and I want, right? Like, we want because I don't see that with Kyle McCord.
Right.
I see a competent player who is accurate. I actually thought Syracuse ran a lot of similar concepts to Brian Dable when it comes to those packaged RPO plays. It's not like Ole Miss where everything is a packaged RPO play, but there were a lot of times at Syracuse where it'd be like a sidecar formation. Kyle McCord would catch the snap, read the linebacker, and then go into the mesh point, tuck, roll out, and then there was a tight end who was in the flat, and now you're putting those defenders in conflict out there with a 2v1. Now, McCord's not all that athletic, so it's usually going to be a throw. And I'll say this, when he does throw, he throws an exceptional, and I know this sounds stupid, but he throws an exceptional pass on the flare, on the to the flat. He hits it upfield shoulder and maximizes the yards after the catch. And that seems like it's a throw that every quarterback should be great at, but they're not. And we know that with New York Giants. Like, if that throw is a little bit behind or a little bit high, it completely screws up the entirety of the play. Whereas McCord was very precise with his accuracy on that level as well. I would make the case for McCord here at pick 182 as a developmental quarterback to come into the team. But the Giants do have two quarterbacks in the room. So now you're essentially saying Tommy DeVito is gone, which I'm fine with, but 3 roster spots are going to be taken up at the quarterback position. Do we want to make that commitment right now? And if not, what other direction should we go?
Yeah, and that's a great question to ask. Let's see what else is on the board there.
Yeah, I mean, Connor Colby, the Iowa offensive guard, is available. Tyler Cooper, I don't know if you got to see him when you were watching the other Minnesota kid. He is the offensive guard. Willie Lampkin, short king right there. Willie Lampkin out of North Carolina. So there's not a ton around. We already went with the running back. We could double dip at running back.
Like Lampkin. I know he's got issues with can he ever play based on his length?
5'11".
Yeah.
And then linebacker wise, Jay Higgins and Cody Lindenberg. I watched both of their tapes. I like Lindenberg. I like how cerebral Lindenberg is as a linebacker. I have questions about both of their athletic ability from the tape. I'm not exactly sure how they tested. I would defer and go to Lindenberg over Higgins. And then Nick Martin is just incredibly exciting. He's ranked really low down here, but Nick Martin is played at Oklahoma State. Terrible defense. Freaking heat-seeking missile, though. I love dudes like that. I love dudes who are going to run full speed in their short area burst and their quickness. It could absolutely disrupt what offenses are trying to do, especially if you blitz them. That's what Nick Martin offered at Oklahoma State. So if we wanted to go with the linebacker, I would probably choose Martin over those other two. But I also did appreciate Cody Lindenberg's tape.
Yeah.
Also go out as well, Jeffrey Boston from Oregon.
I might be convinced to taking the shot on Kyle McCord here. Just
I
because
mean, I am personally.
Yeah, just because I do like enough of what I have those three question marks, but of course you're gonna have that question mark. We're in the 5th round, but he was really accurate with really good ball placement outside the numbers, and that was what really stood out to me the most. Again, a lot of it in a dome and a lot of it outdoors in nice weather, but it looked good,
It
right?
throws
Like
with
you watched him and he
anticipation too,
looked
man.
good.
He's an
What?
anticipatory passer as well.
He has good anticipation. And that even showed up, by the way, in some of his Ohio State tape. There were bad reps, I agree, and just like awful games that we should remember. There are also great moments there of anticipation where between him and Harrison and him and the rest of those receivers. I think there's enough to work with tools wise that if it all clicks, it could be like this is going to sound weird, but I do kind of see this a worse version, a less velocity version of, to me, and I guess a little shorter version of a Jared Goff type quarterback. That's kind of what I see a little bit out of McCord
Yeah,
at his ceiling.
with less arm talent.
Less
Yeah,
arm, because I think
yeah,
everyone underrates Goff. Like I heard some
great.
people early in the process, Nick, compare Shador Sanders, like top end case to Goff, and I'm like, dude, are you freaking kidding me? Did you watch Goff drop lasers in the intermediate level at Cal? Like he was darting balls in the 15 to 20 range in between those windows at Cal. Dink, dink, bang, bang, bang. And he's like 6 foot. What is Goff like 6'5" or
We
six
made
four?
Kyle McCord is the pick. Yeah, golf's big. Golf is
Much bigger player than Shador Sanders. Well, like I hated that comp. I didn't see that one at all. But yeah, Kyle McCord, bigger player. Like you said, maybe like a smaller version of Goff with a lot less velocity, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. Yeah, McCord, 6'3", 218. He is a New York Giant here. And now we're just cruising along right now, Dan, to get to our last pick. And we'll see who we like, who's going to be available. What is it? Pick 246. So we got a little bit of time. How are we feeling about this draft so far, Dan? So far, we'll recap if you want.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter was picked at 3. Cornerback, wide receiver, Colorado. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan. Josiah Stewart, edge, Michigan, really beefing up the interior parts of the Giants' spine on defense. Elijah Arroyo, tight end, Miami. Joshua Farmer, defensive tackle, Florida State. Dylan Sampson at 154, running back, Tennessee. And then Kyle McCord, developmental quarterback, Syracuse at 182.
I think this is the best of the 3 drafts we had, just from a value standpoint. Maybe if we didn't build it out exactly the way we wanted to, but Grant at 34 is insane value. Dylan Sampson's insane value. I think Arroyo's insane value where we got him. I think case can be made that some people think getting Kyle McCord at this point is an amazing pick as well for the Giants. And we still did manage to get a lot of what I wanted out of this draft. I wanted to get a running back in this draft no matter what. I wanted to get to, build up the trenches. Farmer is probably my favorite pick of all our picks from a just pure value standpoint.
Yeah.
So I love this draft. If it played out like this, I think the Giants would be in really, really good shape moving forward.
Absolutely. And now we're sitting here. Last pick, 246. What direction do the Giants? There are some running back names that is like that dude is still available. Trevor Etienne is still available. Ja'Cory Croskett-Merritt from Arizona is still available.
And
so
we don't have the roster space for them, unfortunately, because we're not going
I
to cut
know.
Singletary. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
They are the BPA.
Eric Gray's expendable, but he's already been expended, I think, after
Yes.
the pick of Dylan Sampson. And then if we go to the defensive side of the football, Colin Oliver is still available. We've talked a lot about him, the linebacker.
I think that has to be the pick here. Bet on
traits and production. That's just a lot. I would say a lot of juice to the defense. But you know what? Our defense has been quite parched, Dan. So they could use.
We want to try to get a rotation going. We want to try to take dart throws on the trenches, and we want to become this team like the Eagles and like the Chiefs that have so many different bodies they can rotate in and out on the defensive line. Why not get back to that point?
Yes.
And that's what I think we'd be accomplishing with a lot of what we did in the draft. If we take Oliver,
My thing with Colin Oliver, is we already went with Josiah
Stewart. I know. We have a similar pick.
They're different players, obviously, but I don't think Joe Shane or even us possibly should make a selection with another sub 31-inch arm length type of player. Now, Josiah Stewart is over 31 inches, but Colin Oliver is not.
I agree, but I think at worst he's going to be a really good special teams player. And this is that range where you have to consider that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I do like his tape. I do like the player, so I think you're swaying me into this direction. So I'm probably going to do that. And
yeah, I like Colin Oliver here. I think he should be going higher in drafts.
All right, Colin Oliver. He's not going to because of those arms, but
Yeah.
and that's it. The draft is just concluding. I don't know if they give us a grade at the end, a la APFF, but we're about to see. Mr. Irrelevant was Torricelli. It went away. All right. So here is our draft, ladies and gentlemen. Travis Hunter, Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, Elijah Arroyo, Joshua Farmer, Dylan Sampson, quarterback Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, and then linebacker edge out of Oklahoma State, Colin Oliver. Please, everybody, let us know how Dan and I did here. Hope you guys enjoyed the commentary, the banter, the back and forth on how Dan and I were viewing a lot of these selections to try to improve this New York Giants roster. I would say this roster is quite improved at this point, Dan, from a lot of different perspectives. They're much more explosive on offense with Elijah Arroyo and Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. And then on defense, strengthening the spine of the defense with Kenneth Grant, Joshua Farmer, Josiah Stewart, who is going to be a third edge behind Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, and then Colin Oliver, who can be the last edge on the team behind like Chauncey Golston, while also being a high upside special teams player. I think is a solid get there. Dylan Sampson to complement Tyrone Tracy Jr. to be a different type of to be just another pitch for the Giants when it comes to being a running back and what the Giants can offer from that standpoint. And then the developmental quarterback in Kyle McCord. Maybe you can Kirk Cousins' his ass and the Giants can find a way to land a long-term starter this late in the draft. I don't know if that's possible, but I did like a lot of the things I saw on his tape. I really enjoyed what I saw from the Cal game this past year as well. So overall, I think this is a solid draft, man.
Yeah, I like this draft a lot. Ton of BPA. We've done a lot. We didn't get O-line.
Yeah, I wish we did.
Draft to get O-line and in all drafts are like that, but this one specifically, man, like I don't think there's the players at 65 that are typically available in a draft class that you would want on the interior offensive line specifically. 34, there will be opportunities to get an offensive tackle, I think, for the Giants. It's going to be up to them to decide this Thursday if they want to take a swing on something that's going to help them more long-term than now. But, at some point you got to start taking gambles on offensive tackles with these premium picks because that's where you find them. Connor Lee has great feet. If Josh Simmons is there, I'd definitely be interested in him. We'll see where they go, and we'll see if they're interested in any of these players, right, as we get closer to the draft. But thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.